First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston and to our annual water communion. I'm Carol Burris, and I'm honored to be your Director of Religious Education. We are a congregation that welcomes you, no matter who you love, no matter how you practice your spirituality, because we know we need not think alike to love alike. We are a congregation that extends a heartfelt and inclusive invitation to join us in meaningful worship and in personal and spiritual growth and in service to the world. We welcome each of you, those here with us in person and those who are joining us online via Livestream, and all who are searching for a spiritual home. This morning, our service is multi-generational, which means those of all ages in our community are welcome, as we do a handful of times each year, to experience worship together. We won't sing the children on their way, nor do we have our children's religious education groups meeting this morning. We do have nursery staff available if that works better for your little one. We begin our worship service by raising our voices in song with hymn number 126, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. Please rise in body or in spirit.
We gather this morning both in person and virtually at the start of our liturgical year. We gather to say welcome to each other, to tell each of us that all of us have a place in this congregation and in this world. We gather to say that the immigrant, the undocumented, the refugee is welcome here. We gather to say that whatever you believe, whether you are Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, atheist, pagan, you are welcome here. We gather to say that if you are gay or straight, man or woman, transgender or gender fluid, you are welcome here. We gather in this community and we proclaim that all are welcome, that love is more powerful than hate, that there is hope for justice, and that it is good to be together. Come, friends, let us worship together.
Praise
It's nice to be with everybody this morning for the annual Mingling of the Waters service. It's a service that is common to many Unitarian Universalist congregations. Traditionally, it serves two purposes. The first, that it reminds us that no matter where we have been during the summer months, it is time to regather as a religious community. The second is to help us all recall that we are all ultimately dependent. No matter where we go, we must have water. Without it, we will die. We need community and love too. If we lack those, we will wither just as surely as if we lack water. Today, the water serves an additional purpose. The water we share today will remind us that wherever we are each connected to each other. Whether you are participating in the service online or here present in our sanctuary, we are part of a single community, the human family. The water we share belongs to no one. It cycles through the entire world. Rain falls to earth, penetrates ground, and evaporates skyward again. Some of the water in the sanctuary may eventually cycle its way to those of you at home. The water in your homes might someday find its way here, for everything is connected, and none of us are ever truly alone. Water, after all, makes life possible. More precious than gold, more precious than oil, water encompasses the world. When our water becomes polluted by lead, methyl dioxin, by any product of industrial or agricultural waste, our bodies become polluted when we drink it. Our connection to water should remind us that we are dependent upon this planet, and not somehow separate from it. In this era of climate catastrophe and global warming, we must remember our connection to and dependence upon the good earth. It's the only home we have. It's the only place we yet know in all of the wide cosmos, all of the infinite universe of ours, of stars and nebula, ice and plasma that will sustain human life. This year, for our water communion, we invite you to meditate upon the question, how does the water you've brought sustain you? In your order of your service, you'll find a piece of paper with raindrops, a reminder of the vast cycle of water of which we're each a part. I invite you to write a response to the question, how does the water you brought sustain you? And of course, if you haven't brought water, you can think metaphorically and think of how the water that I would have brought sustain me. How does the water you brought sustain you? There will now be 3 minutes for you to reflect on the question. Ushers will collect your raindrops, your responses during the offering. And if you're at home and wish to participate, you can email info@firstuu.org at any point during the service. We'll read representatives of your responses later on.
Our special music this morning is a beautiful song of welcoming and inclusion. We had planned for the choir to perform this song for you this morning, but we're following some emerging guidance coming from the Unitarian Universalist Association around singing, choirs joining together and singing. So we're just postponing the choir just briefly, hopefully. You'll be hearing from them soon, we hope. But we're just being cautious and following the UUA guidelines that are just coming out. So we'll present this beautiful song in a smaller way today. This is A Place at the Table. For everyone born, a place at the table. For everyone born, clean water and bread. A shelter, a space, a safe place for growing. For everyone born, a star overhead. And love will be known when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. Yes, love will be known when we are creators of justice, justice and joy. For young and for old, a place at the table, a voice to be heard, a part in the song. The hands of a child in hands that are wrinkled. For young and for old, the right to belong. And love will be known when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. Yes, love will be known when we are creators of justice, justice and joy. For gay and for straight, a place at the table, a covenant shared, a welcoming place, a rainbow of race and color and gender. For gay and for straight, the chalice of grace. And love will be known when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. Yes, love will be known when we are creators of justice, justice and joy, justice and joy, justice and joy, justice and joy, justice and joy.
We invite you in just a moment to stand with us. We're going to get moving to sing the lovely song that highlights our Unitarian Universalist values, Standing Like a Tree. So the words go like this: standing like a tree with my roots dug down, my branches wide and open. Come down the rain, come down the sun, come down the fruit to a heart that is open to be standing like a tree. So if you will rise as you are able and want to, we will do this together. Let's go on. Standing like a tree with my roots dug down, my branches wide and open. Come down the rain, come down the sun, come down the fruit to a heart that is open to be standing like a tree with my roots dug down, my branches wide and open. Come down the rain, come down the sun, come down the fruit to a heart that is open to be standing like, one more time, with my roots dug down, my branches wide and open. Come down the rain, come down the sun, come down the fruit to a heart that is open to be standing like a tree.
Tomorrow, hundreds of thousands of children from across Houston will return to school. In the last week, many others returned to private school or surrounding school districts. Many of those who are homeschooled are now also beginning a time of renewed academic activity. Today, we bless the children and youth in our congregation at the start of the school year. I invite parents and children present to stand now if they feel comfortable, but stay in your pews. While you do, Carol will come around and hand you a bookmark with our Unitarian Universalist principles. And if you're at home, we'll be sending one of these bookmarks to you in the mail. Parents, whether you are here or at home, you can place your hand on your child or children. If your child has their school backpack on them, you might bless that backpack instead. Parents, during this time of physical distancing and in this pandemic, it can be especially hard to support yourselves and your children. You might feel alone or overwhelmed or powerless. Your hands on your children are a reminder that you are their support and their caregivers during this time. And I extend my hands to you and invite the congregation to make a similar gesture as a reminder that this congregation is here for you during this difficult time. We Unitarian Universalists believe that we form community to take care of each other, and we are called to do so now more than ever. Children and youth, those of you starting your studies, and for those of you whom your studies have already commenced, I extend to you this blessing. Even when you are away from First Church, you carry the heart of Unitarian Universalism with you wherever you go. May you feel curiosity all of your days. May your imagination catch fire. May you find courage when it is necessary. May confusion lead to better questions. May you feel compassion to those around you and they towards you. May you feel seen and heard, and may you see and hear others. May you speak up for those who have not been heard, who are not seen. As your spirit's home, we are made stronger when you share what you learn. We ask that you bring what you learn back to us. And we ask the congregation, extending their hands to you, to share their love and blessings as you head on your journey this week. I ask the congregation to offer their support to the children by saying, "We will." Amen. Today is an intergenerational service, and so I invite the children during this time to color in their bookmarks. There should be crayons and pencils, colored pencils in the pews, as well as a few small pieces of paper. Our service is about water and how water connects all of us, so you're invited to think about that as you draw. And adults can color too during the service if you like. Please join me in the spirit that some call prayer and others name meditation. Open yourself to the wonders and mysteries of the world. Open yourself to compassion and empathy. Take one breath. Take another. Center yourself. This Sunday morning, like so many Sunday mornings in these times, the world seems replete with news of the horrors that we humans do to each other. The resumption of the Taliban rule in Afghanistan, the growing refugee crisis, the need for people to find new homes in strange lands is upsetting. The governor's assault on mask mandates, the legislature's assault on democracy, the resurgence of the pandemic with the rise of the Delta variant. These are difficult times. Times so difficult, I am tempted to leave the news of the world unmentioned and outside of these doors because it feels so heavy. In spite of this heaviness, I offer you a prayer for the power of community and the power and possibility of healing. While all might seem dire, let us recall that human life is filled with acts of compassion and empathy, small and large. I can extend my hand to you. You can extend your hand to me. Together we can be a little stronger, a little more powerful, a little more capable, a little more loving in facing these difficult times. My prayer this Sunday then is simple. May we extend our hands and in doing so help humanity awaken to the larger truth that we are each connected to all. We are each part of this beautiful planet, each dependent upon clean air, clean water, and the great global commons. May this truth stir in the hearts of the powerful, but most of all, may it stir in the hearts of all the people of the planet. For it is the masses of us, and not in the rich and mighty, who will ultimately decide our human fate. If we can remember that we are united as a human family with all of the other species on this planet. That it may be so, I invite the congregation to say, Amen. We now pause to lift up that which sits heavy and light upon our hearts. Lift up Marianne Cheslek, who underwent shoulder surgery successfully this week. And I invite you now to speak or to bring to mind the names of those you wish to be held by this community. In this great cloud of witness and memory amid this beloved community, we hear these names and hold them in our hearts. Let us remember the suffering and joy amid and among our community that we do not know. Pause now in awe and wonder of the mystery that is life. In our loud and busy lives, we do not pause often enough like this. So we are thankful for the cease in cacophony, the cease of the noise of the world, and in the spirit of love, in the spirit of hope, and in the spirit of compassion, I invite each of you to enter into a time of silent meditation, reflection, and prayer.
Our morning offering is shared with an organization that shares our Unitarian Universalist values. This week, that organization is TOP, the Texas Organizing Project. The mission of the Texas Organizing Project is to bring together Blacks and Latino Texans so that together they can fight for real change, for organizing their neighborhoods, investing their time and energy in causes relevant to their communities, and collectively taking ownership over TOP's agenda, strategy, and direction. With a seasoned and committed organizing staff, a diverse membership, and leaders from all walks of life, TOP has already made a huge impact and is positioned to continue to grow. Those in our sanctuary will find the instructions for text giving in the order of service, and those watching the live stream will see the instruction on your screen. Our regular Sunday morning offering collection invites us to weave a tapestry of love and action. We ask you to please give generously. An offering will now be gratefully received.
Join with me in saying the words to dedicate our offering found in your order of service. To the work of this church, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives, and these are our offerings.
This morning, we'll actually be using all three of our hymnals this morning. I invite you to find the purple hymnal, Las Voces del Camino. This is our Spanish language hymnal. We'll also be utilizing several languages this morning. We've been singing in English. Next, we sing in Spanish with number 31, Fuente de Amor. Many of us will know this as Spirit of Life. So we'll sing in Spanish, number 31, and then Carol will be leading us in sign language. So yet another language this morning. Please rise in body or in spirit for Fuente de Amor.
Oh
That was really beautiful, Carol and Mark. Thank you so much. It is good to be with you in this sanctuary today and to see, or I know have many of us joining online. This is the second year in a row our annual in-gathering service has taken place under, shall we say it, unusual circumstances. Last year, our service took place entirely online. I wasn't even certain what it meant at that point for a community to gather again online. This year, some of us have gathered in person, and others are participating via our live stream. This year, like last year, as the pandemic has unfolded, we've had to adapt and adjust our service as best we can to respond to the situation while retaining its core rituals. All of this has required a certain willingness to reimagine what our worship looks like and the structure of our liturgy, the set of things we do in the service. Concerns about transmission of the Delta variant led Mark to make the difficult decision just yesterday to change the structure of our gathering. As he told you earlier, today was supposed to be the start of the choir season, and the first in-person choir performance in almost a year and a half, I'm sure, was going to be a joyous occasion. It would have been the marker that we had returned to something like the before times. And now we're left having to adapt again, which is not exactly the easiest task. The service takes planning, of course, and changing plans on short notice can be difficult. We're blessed to have such a talented music director that he was able to change the music in less than 24 hours. However, the primary challenge is not the difficulty that changing the service presents on the staff. It's difficult because of the nature of worship itself. Worship is an activity filled with ceremony and infused with meaning. Much of what we do on a Sunday morning is intended to connect us to something greater than ourselves while deepening our connections to each other. The repeated patterns, the weekly activities of worship, the items that form our liturgy are designed to offer you a certain amount of familiarity and comfort. We do so in order to provide you with a place where you feel welcomed and secure in a certain kind of stability. Through the things we do together, the lighting and extinguishing of the chalice, the singing of hymns, the dedication of the offering, the ongoing conversation that is our sermons, we want to communicate that no matter the difficulties of the hour, the challenges in our lives, there will be an institution and a community here for us throughout everything. This has, of course, been the principal reason over the course of the pandemic why the staff, the board, and I have done what we can to ensure that First Houston has some form of worship each and every week. And that form of worship has some semblance to the services we held in the before times. Nonetheless, we've had to adjust almost every week. First, we had to learn how to do services entirely online. Then we returned to in-person services with the hopes that the majority of the community would be gathering with us in the sanctuary and that we would be able to resume many of the activities, such as regular choir performances and, should I say it, a boisterous coffee hour that had been previously critical to our community. Now we find ourselves trying to figure out how to, once again, provide a meaningful worship experience for a congregation where about half of you are joining us online, while the other half of you sit in the pews, wear masks, and keep your physical distance. Instead of complaining, am I complaining or just describing what's happening? Under the difficult circumstances of the pandemic, it's a little bit hard to know whether we're complaining or describing sometimes. But anyways, instead of complaining, I should be celebrating that our Unitarian Universalist tradition is one that encourages us to constantly reimagine the nature of our life together. There are no prescribed actions that we must do each and every worship service. We can have a service without a sermon, without music, even without a chalice. For us, worship should be always about what best serves the needs of the community and responds to the crises and blessings of the hour. This approach to worship comes directly from our Unitarian Universalist theology. Exactly a century ago, the Universalist minister L.B. Fisher wrote, "Universalists are often asked where they stand. The only true answer to give to this question is that we do not stand at all. We move. We do not stand at all. We move." The movement can be detected in the flexible approach we generally take to organizing our services. Of course, I say generally because one of the markers of our religious diversity is that within some Unitarian Universalist congregations, not here in Houston, but those back in New England, there's a need to keep the liturgy exactly the same, not just year to year, but generation to generation. Some congregations have even kept their liturgy intact since before the Revolutionary War. Those handful of congregations aside, although actually I should say that if you're ever in Boston, King's Chapel is worth the visit. The minister there still dresses in his or her Puritan ceremonial Sunday best. Those handful of congregations aside, the flexibility found within our services is directly connected to the contours of Unitarian Universalist theology and religious life. Today's service is an excellent example of that very dynamic. Ingathering and the water communion are important events in our congregation. Typically, they mark a significant shift in our life together. Travelers return from their summer travels. The children's religious education program takes on a more organized form. Choir starts. There are more people in the pews than there have been throughout June, July, and August. The energy and excitement is palpable, and we celebrate seeing friends that we haven't seen in months. The importance of these events can sometimes make it feel like they've been central to Unitarian Universalism for a long time. Yet, water communion, in particular, is a relatively recent addition to our religious life. King's Chapel certainly does not celebrate it. I'm not even certain how long First Houston's been celebrating it. Looking through our archives, the only references that I could find to the water communion were from about a decade ago. Now, I'm certain that First Houston's been celebrating it longer than that. My best guess is that the service came to this congregation in the 1980s. It was part of an effort to transform Unitarian Universalism that was led by women. As the feminist movement and the feminist theology gained strength both within Unitarian Universalism and without it, in the 70s there was an effort to push aside what Lucille Shuck, one of the creators of the service, named the male-dominated hierarchy sanctioned by Judeo-Christian theology, and replace it with something that served the spiritual needs of all people. Now, of course, I say people, but Shuck and her colleagues and the women that they were working together were particularly interested in reimagining Unitarian Universalism so that it met their needs as women. They were deeply critical of the humanism that then dominated many of our congregations. Shuck wrote that all that humanism did was push a male god aside. Rather than providing a radical theological innovation, she claimed, all it did was move the human male up from the top step of the divinely ordered hierarchy to a platform beside God, and then succeeded in pushing the great father aside and enthroning the human male. At a 1980 feminist theology convocation in my hometown of East Lansing, Michigan, Shuck and Carolyn McDade, whose hymn we just sang a moment ago, proposed an approach to creating a more feminist Unitarian Universalism. It focused on liturgical innovation and reimagining what we did when we gathered together. Rather than having services that always lifted up the sermon as the highest point, they created services that were the products of the entire community. The water communion was born in that spirit. Its intention, they said, in that first water communion was to give shape to a new spirituality. Their service was in many ways like ours. Participants brought waters that connected them to something greater than themselves and mingled the waters together in a bowl to represent their coming together in community. In the service, McDade and Shuck challenged the patriarchal Unitarian Universalism of their day, and in 1980, the majority of Unitarian Universalist ministers were men, and our association didn't have a woman as president until 2017. They sought to call women to strength rather than to the support of others, to action rather than to passivity. In their work of creating and recreating the rituals and symbols they gave meaning to, they chose water as the symbol of our empowerment. For them, they said water was directly related to the cycles of their lives. As rivers and cycles release their waters and begin again, so do we cycle. The ritual was deeply meaningful for many of the participants. Some brought it back to their home congregations and adapted it for in-gathering services. The congregation I grew up on began celebrating it the very next year, and I have fond childhood memories of the water communion in our old sanctuary. Others took longer to adapt it, and some, like King's Chapel, never did. Whatever it came to be used, though, it was reimagined. Congregations discarded the emphasis on the experiences of cisgendered women for a theology that they imagined to be more inclusive. Water came to symbolize our connection to and dependence on this muddy blue-green ball of a planet and the cycles of life. The service often came to focus on the stories of the members of the congregation that they told each other. In recent years, it's frequently proved an opportunity to reflect on the climate crisis and what must be done and what is not being done, but is to confront it. So I tell this story less to offer a particular interpretation of the water communion and more as a way to introduce our theme for worship for this year, and a task that we have before us as a religious community and indeed as a human species. The pandemic, the climate crisis, all of the grave challenges of the hour, these times call us to reimagine what it means to be Unitarian Universalists, what it means to be a religious community, and indeed even human beings. The story of the water communion should remind us that this act of reimagining is not new. It's something that we Unitarian Universalists have been doing for a long time now, whether we've been gathering in person or online, or some mixture of both. And so I close my homily simply with an invitation. I invite you to engage in this act of reimagining with me and with the rest of the congregation. I invite us to reimagine this year together. That it might be so, I ask the congregation to say I invite the congregation at home or here in the sanctuary to say amen. The water I bring today is not my own. It is what remains from last year's service and indeed from many years' services before. The water connects this community with its history. It's a reminder of the gifts that have been given in the past so that we might have a present together. This water has come from across town and across the world, but has remained in this community. We use it in child dedications and at memorial services to represent the community of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston. In pouring it now, I invoke all of those who have come before us and the collective experiences of joy, wisdom, sorrow that make this congregation sacred.
Connects us to the earth. We are water, and water is us. The rivers, the streams that flow across the planet's surface, in some sense, flow in our veins as well. All life on this planet is entwined.
We invite you to listen to the words of this congregation about how water sustains us. I invite forward the water from members of our congregation so that it can be mingled with the congregational waters. This water is from both those gathered here and those who are participating online, but who have brought their water to us over the course of the week. Our mingled water is a symbol of how we are connected, united as a beloved community.
Singing with friends, sitting on rocks in a river, connects me to all life.
Growing up on the farm, water was necessary to sustain our crops.
Water from the rain, giving life to my garden and the birds around.
It reminds me of the many beautiful places I have been with lakes and rivers. This summer, I drove along a peaceful scenic river in the Smoky Mountains and enjoyed some quiet time there.
Water always rejuvenates me in contemplating the infinite possibilities of life, no matter what I am going through.
The water at MD Anderson Hospital kept Peggy through chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. Still here.
This water conveniently from the spigot in front has sustained the garden and helped many, many homeless people as well. Farmer Phil.
Water not only quenches our thirst, but provides necessary liquid to help our bodies function adequately.
Water brings cool when it's very hot. Whether ice on my head, cool water to drink, or dancing in a rainstorm, I feel satisfaction and joy in the moment.
Water is good for the soul.
I offer you now these words from Tess Bomberger. May we have the wisdom of water, that life will have its falls sometimes, like a mountain stream troubling over round stones, sometimes like threads of rain from clouds, sometimes in breathtaking cascades. May we have the wisdom of water, that each fall is finite, each ends in contact with earth. May we remember that we in this community are as earth to each other. We cushion each other's falls, lessening the impact, supporting one another through hard times. We are the ground of blessed community. May we have the wisdom of water, that all will rise again from each fall. Sometimes like mist breathed through neighboring trees, sometimes like a geyser shouting from the earth, sometimes as imperceptibly as evaporation from the sea. Our water, now collected, will connect us to those who gather for the second service. And then it will be boiled, strained, and purified and put back in a jar. There we will have it with us throughout the year when we dedicate children, hold memorial services, or hold weddings. The water will represent us, the gathered community, and our collective wisdoms, joys, and sorrows. So with these words, we dedicate our water, unnamed and unknown source of all existence, which some of us call God, and others think of as the laws of the universe. We wish to know the wisdom of water. We hope to learn to bend and flow down mountains up from springs. We will be soft like spring rain, ever renewing life around us. May we have the wisdom of water. Water carries us, like our community, as we drift through life, when we hit rapids or when we float at peace. Water has blessed us. It has given us life. It sustains us. We know that each drop of rain, each rivulet is sacred, just as every member of our community is sacred. We are thankful for the water of our community, for the water of life, for the water that runs through our veins. In times of crisis and in times of joy, let us remember the strength of water. We hope that, like a drop of rain, we are always part of something greater than ourselves, that we are never alone. And so that we may collectively bless the water, I invite the congregation to say, Amen.
You'll find our closing song in the Teal Songbook, Singing the Journey. This is number 1007. There's a river flowing in my soul. Please rise in body or in spirit.
Please find the words printed in the order of service to extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community.
These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
We leave this place with words from the inner poet Uvanoko. The great sea has set me in motion, set me adrift, moving me like a weed in a river. The sky and strong wind have moved the spirit inside me till I am carried away, trembling with joy. Let us travel the river of life together and tremble likewise. Amen and blessed.